Hello and welcome back to my channel Read with Ruchi. My name is Ruchi and here I come every weekend to kind of share some great things about the books that I read, maybe want to read, or the ones that maybe are suggested to me to read. So before I start the video, I just want to again thank each one of you for supporting me, supporting the channel in all the way you can. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for sharing with your friends. Thank you for liking my videos and commenting on it. I really like to see so many amazing people coming together to support the channel and myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As you guys must have already guessed it by now, this is going to be my March wrap-up video. So I'm going to share all the books that I read in the month of March. How many stars did I give it to them? And how did I like these books? And just a little bit of summary about what I read in the book. So let's get started. Okay, so to begin with, if you remember, in the beginning of March, I had shared with you which books I would be reading. And I read those 4 books that I had mentioned I would be reading, but I also read one more book. So one additional book that I was able to read in the month of March. As I mentioned also in my first or probably second video, I'm not gonna pressurize myself because I've seen a lot of people out there who, put a lot of pressure on themselves for reading and creating content, but then they just become the victim of burnouts, and I don't want to put myself into that situation, just so that I can continue to create content consistently without getting burned out. And of course, also, so I have a full-time job. So, every day, I'm sure most of you, and many YouTubers and bookstagrammers are in the same situation as myself. We work from morning 8 to 5. And then the time that we have before or after work is the time that we utilize to kind of read books. But that's also the time we need to do a lot of other things. So of course, I wanted to kind of make sure that I don't put pressure on myself. I don't kind of overwhelm myself, and then do my best in the time given. So I had mentioned that I would be reading 4 books in the month of March, but I was happy to read one more additional book. So I read 5 books in March. And of course, if you follow me on Bookstagram, basically on my Instagram page, Read with Ruchi, you would have already seen my reviews there because as I read these books, I kept posting my reviews there. But if not, please go and follow my Bookstagram page right now. I'll put the link down below. But also, out of the 5 books that I read, there were 1, 2, 3. There were 3 4-star books, 1 4.5-star books, and 1 3.5-star book. So I honestly, overall, I really enjoyed reading all the books that I read in this month. But also I would like to share what I read, how I liked it, and how many stars did I give to each one of them. So let's begin. So the first book that I read in the month of March was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Now, again, I probably might have mentioned this already, but I wanted to read this book since last year, but I wasn't able to. So this month, when I picked up the book, I wanted to start with this one. So The Guest List is basically about a couple who is getting married on an island. And, they have their family and friends who've come together to celebrate their day. And somebody is murdered on the island. Now, what I liked about this book was the couple who's getting married, Will and Jules, are the center of this entire plot. Now, but they have a lot of people around them from their family and friends who are also present to celebrate their day with them. Now, the best thing about this book was that I did not know until the end of the story who got murdered and who was the murderer. And it was so exciting because every character in this book was in this book for a reason. Like, there was no character in the book that was for no reason in the story. Every character had a role, a purpose in the story, and that's why they were there. So I was excited to kind of, keep reading to find out who's basically killed, So in the beginning of the story, you get to know that there is someone who's murdered, but you don't know who that person is. And of course, you don't know who the murderer is. So, by the end of the book, you find out, and it's, for me, honestly, I didn't see that twist coming. I didn't see that last bit coming. So I really, really enjoyed this. And what I liked, other than that, what I liked about it is that everything was so well built up. The story was built up until the end, and you constantly keep thinking, okay, what is going to happen? Like, and every person in a particular scene, would make you think like, oh, this is the murderer, and maybe not. So when you reach to the end of the story, you will find out like, this was just not expected. A little before the end of the chapter, I felt like I know what is the purpose of the killer. Why is this person killing, if at all this person is going to kill? But again, I was I just didn't guess the plot. So the plot twist. So I think I really loved the guest list. And now I'm excited to read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley as well. But to this one, I gave 4 stars out of 5. And I did not give the 1 star, the remaining 1 star, just because around the end of the story, I felt like, one, I wanted to read more, but also from like around the middle of it, basically, around the middle of the story, it went like a little slow. And I was like, oh my gosh, come on, buck up. Come on, move fast, But that was the only like not so likable part of this book. But everything else was great. So 4 out of 5 for this one. The next one that I read was The Maid by Nita Prose. And again, if you have read this book, you will know the main character, Molly the maid, is so likable because she's so naive. And I really liked her character because, just like her relationship with her grandmom, who kept, who taught her everything about life, is no more with her. So this is basically about this maid, Molly, who works at a big hotel. And, she's perfect in her work, and she's learned these ethics of work and being a good person, being a good human being, from her grandmother. But her grandmother recently passes away, and Molly is left alone only with the lessons that her grandmom taught her. And, once she returns back to work after her grandmom's passing, she gets to her regular work schedule, and she, as she, goes to clean the rooms, following her regular routine, she goes into this room to find a VIP guest dead on his bed in one of the rooms. So that's basically the plot of it. Now, is Molly the culprit, or is there someone else who killed Mr. Black, who's a VIP guest? We only find out in the end of the story. So that's basically the plot of it. But what I liked about the story was I was immediately able to connect with Molly because she's so naive, and she's so like very like ethical when it comes to work, and helping others, and being a good listener, being a good friend, so I really liked her. I kind of predicted the murder by like the middle of the story, but it has another plot twist altogether by toward the end of the story, and I did not anticipate that. So I was extremely happy to read that plot twist. I was extremely happy to, just experience that plot twist. So I was like very, very happy to read this. So I gave The Maid 4 stars out of 5. Again, I took out 1 star because I felt like throughout the story, there are a lot of things that kind of presents Molly and her grandmom's relationship. So like, there when like Molly was in a situation, she remembered what her grandmom told her. Like for example, if she was in a situation where she was losing hope, she would remember like her grandmom told her like not to lose hope, be courageous, and have that strength to come forward and do justice. So and this is just an example. So that I felt like was a little too much, because like after every second scene I was able to kind of see that, and there was like a lot of back and forth with those dialogues with her and her grandmom. So that I felt was a little too much, but of course I also understand it was needed to kind of build Molly's character. But overall, again, for some goods and bads, I would like to give this a 4 star out of 5. Next up, I read The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. And again, as I had mentioned in my second video where I was sharing about my March TBR, I had mentioned like I have not read other books from these 2 authors, but this book would basically determine if I want to read more of their works. Now this story is about a couple, and I have like marked, like highlighted a few things, but I don't know why and what. But anyway, so this story is basically about a couple, Marissa and Matthew Bishop, and they are a wealthy suburbanite couple in Washington City, and so on the surface, like the couple looks just like a rich, wealthy, normal couple, but inside of their relationship is very rotten. And what happens is that Marissa, the wife, basically cheats on her husband Matthew, and now she wants to repair this relationship. So she takes Matthew to a professional counselor, Avery, who basically has lost her official practicing license as a counselor, but she still takes cases. Her clients know about, she losing her license, but they don't mind because they've heard so much about Avery. So basically Marissa and Matthew go to Avery, Matthew not being aware that Marissa has brought him to Avery for a reason that unfolds. But what happens is basically, so when Marissa brings Matthew to Avery, she discloses in their first session that she's cheated on someone with a random guy from her gym. And Matthew is shocked in the first session, and all his trust kind of breaks into pieces, and that's where the story kind of builds up. So, now the story starts with Marissa cheating on Matthew, but it's not just one thing that this couple has in their relationship, which is kind of dark and secretive. There's so many other things that kind of unfolds as the story moves forward. So this infidelity is not just one issue that this couple holds onto. There's a lot more as Avery digs deeper. Now I loved the counselor Avery just because she was gutsy, she was smart, she was vigilant. And there were so many things going on in Avery's life as well, but she was constantly tackling those things along with her clients' situations. So I really loved her. I felt like she was like a powerful woman, and more power to you, Avery. So yes, I really loved Avery. I also loved the fact that I didn't understand the actual mystery, or didn't understand the actual suspense in the story until for a very long time. Basically, I think until the last few chapters, only the last few chapters kind of unfolds exactly what happened and what was the basis of what. Until then, it's completely different. I don't want to reveal too much. Then you probably, when you start reading, you will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a good read. But at the same time, I felt like the entire story was very slow. And when I'm reading a mystery thriller or horror, I like it to move quickly. I love fast pace in mystery thriller, suspense, horror. In fact, even romance, I like fast paced reads. And this was like a very slow pace from the beginning to the mid of it. It picks up, from like after very many chapters, I wouldn't say toward the end, but like after almost like 60% of the story, that's when it picks up. But until then, like you might feel like, oh, okay, it's like they're dragging it too much. Come to the point, So I didn't like that. Also, there were some characters that I felt were like useless and irritating. And again, you would know what I'm talking about once you start reading this book. Like there was a particular character I absolutely hated in Marissa's life, and you will know for sure once you start reading. But anyway, so I gave this a 3.5 stars out of 5, just because of the bummers that I felt while reading this book, especially because of the pace of this book from the beginning to almost like 65% of my read. So yeah, 3.5 for this one. Next up is The Whisper Man by Alex North. Okay, so as I had mentioned before, I heard so much about this book before I picked this up. And I wanted to also read The Shadows from the same author, but I was like, let me just first read this, and then I will determine if I want to read The Shadows as well from Alex North. Now, this story is about... it's about a lot of people, basically. But it's about a town, Featherbank, where a lot of kids disappear one after the other. And many years ago, when these disappearances started to happen, a man was caught, and he had confessed to his crime of, abducting children and whatnot, and he was in the prison. And the police department had basically given him a name, the Whisper Man, and he was named as Whisper Man because he used to come to the kids, he would usually like whisper outside of the windows of kids' rooms, and he would like lure them and abduct them and kill them. So that is why he was named as the Whisper Man. Now the Whisper Man is in the prison, but the kids have started to disappear one more time in the town of Featherbank. Now there is this person who, after his wife dies, brings his young son to Featherbank because he has some connection with Featherbank. His family used to live in the town of Featherbank. He grew up in Featherbank, and that is why he wanted to bring all those memories back to Featherbank with his son, because he didn't want to live where he lived after his wife's passing. So once he comes here, the son Jake also starts to hear whispers, and it just kind of goes very crazy when Jake disappears. Now the Whisper Man is in the prison. Who else is abducting kids from their homes or from the playground? And that's all the story that the Whisper Man holds. So basically, who is the Whisper Man actually, or the person in the prison? Is that even the Whisper Man actually, or no? Or there is another Whisper Man who never was caught. So to find out more, read the Whisper Man. But I know, in this story, I loved the creepiness. There are certain scenes, and I was kind of also listening to the audiobook for this one, and I must tell you, I just did not enjoy the audiobook as much as I usually do. But in some places, it was scary and creepy because there were certain dialogues that I felt were like, just stop, And and like even after reading this book, like when at night, like I had to, like on the day off, after I finished this book, I had to like wake my husband up if I had to go to the washroom at night, because that creepiness kind of stays with you for a little bit, once you just finish the book. So I love that creepiness. I also did not predict the climax. I didn't predict the plot twist. I did not predict who the Whisper Man was, or where the Whisper Man was, or whatever was happening, how it was happening. You'll know what I mean when you read it. But yeah, it was a good end to the story, but I didn't predict that. So I want to give this a 4-star out of 5, and just because in the beginning I felt like the book was a little slow for me. Again, it was still the story was still building up quite a bit until 40% of the story. So that's something I don't enjoy. So yeah, that is one reason. And another reason was the audiobook. I just did not like the audiobook at all. There were times when I listened to a couple of chapters at a stretch on the audio, and then I had to like reread them because I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, but overall, it was a good read. It was creepy. If you like things like you don't know what's going to happen in the end, and there's a little bit of creepiness, you want to enjoy that creepiness, you also want to keep the suspense, and overall want to just like have a great time reading a book, this one is for you. So The Whisper Man, 4 out of 5. And the final book that I read, the 5th book that I read in March, was Finnlay Down is Killing It by Ellie Cosmano. So I might have mentioned that I wanted to read this book for so long now, and I've heard so much about this book, but wasn't able to read it. So I plan to pick this up. I was also planning to pick up the sequel of this book, but I just didn't get enough time. And anyway, I was able to complete this one. I was extremely happy that I picked this one as my 5th book for March, because honestly, I enjoyed the story to the T. Now, the story is basically about our main character, Finnlay Donovan, who is basically an author who's failing miserably to finish her book, that she is committed to her publisher and her agent. Now, there's, in the beginning, she goes to meet her agent to basically tell her that she might need some more time. And her agent asks her where she's at in the book. And, she basically just has to kind of, write something up where, a murder is taking place, the bloodstains are cleaned and everything, basically just describing how she can quickly finish up a murder mystery. And, that's the discussion that happens at a restaurant between the author Finnlay and her agent. But another person sitting in that restaurant thinks that Finnlay is a hitman, a hit woman, and she basically gives her a contract to kill her husband. In return, she would pay her $50,000. Now that's a big take, right? Now Finnlay is a single mother raising her 2 young children. She recently got divorced from her husband, who's a big shot, has good money, and has hired good lawyer to support this case where they're fighting to basically they're fighting for their children's custody. And Finnlay thinks, like, now that her book is in such a mess, she's not able to finish it. She's also going to raise these 2 children all by herself. And now, before even that happens, she has to fight their custody. She would need money to get all of this done, right? So what happens is, when she gets this contract, she does not want to do it, of course, because she's not a murderer, she's not a hit woman, but she thinks about it. Like, what if I take this contract? Can I do it? Can I not? Should I take this contract or not? I'm not a murderer, but how will I do it? And all these questions and confusions and thoughts and ideas come to her mind. So basically what she does is something that you will have to find out only by reading this book. I'm not going to tell you what happens because there's so much that happens. It's an amazing read. What I loved about this book is it's a fun mystery thriller. It's a quick read, very fast paced. It's witty and page turning. And that's what I love about any. It's not a cozy mystery, I must tell you. It's not a cozy mystery, but it's witty. It has some humor to it. And I also love, like, how Finnlay, no matter how silly she behaves at times, I still just loved her character for some reason, and she's just so adorable. Like, she's just so adorable. So I really love that. I also loved Finnlay and her nanny's relationship, because she does so much for her, after, like, the middle of the middle of the story, as it picks up. But it's really good. So I gave this a 4.5 stars out of 5. The only bummer that I felt was the story gets just a little bit, just a little tad bit slower toward the end. And maybe I feel like the last 2 chapters were not even needed. I mean, it's okay. We don't even want to know, like, what happened after the fact, But anyway, some people like it that way. So to each its own, right? But I really love the story. It's a 4.5 stars out of 5 for me. I loved it, and I'm excited to read, really looking forward to read the sequel of this one. Finnlay Donovan, what is it? Knocks Them Dead? Yes, Knocks Them Dead. So I'm really excited to read that one. So yes, so this was my March wrap up. As you all just witnessed, I had an exciting month. I am hoping to read a little more next month, but we will see. I have still not decided what I'm going to read. I'm thinking I'll definitely read the sequel to Finnlay Donovan, but let's see. Let's see how it goes. But so far, I think I really enjoyed my month of March with all the amazing reads. So far, it was great to read the 5 books that I had decided to. I was able to accomplish that, and that's the biggest part. And that's all for today's video. I am going to meet with you next weekend. Until then, please take good care of yourself. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like my video, share it with your family and friends so they can do the same. And don't forget to comment. Please give me suggestions, ideas, your love and support, as you always do. Also, go and follow my Instagram page so you know what I'm doing there. Sometimes you don't see that on YouTube, but you sure do on Instagram, right? Because that's like daily updates, you know. So yeah, so until then, I am going to leave you to meet you next weekend. Until then, please take care of yourself. Namaste.